is return on capital invested adequate? So if you could fill in your notes as we go along, please. When it comes to lenders, is there enough operating profit being generated to cover payments? Things like interest, repayments, etc. Is there cash flow? Is it adequate to cover these payments? How about employees? Is there security? Of employment? Is company financially strong? Those are questions the employees will seek answers to as they look at the accounts. How about the government? They've got to decide on levels of taxes, and obviously the opposite of taxes, grants and subsidies. Grants may be given to encourage employment, creation of employment in otherwise less developed areas. How about the public? I suppose the public has provided funds to the large company, and so they are entitled to receive information. Though in a broader sense, I suppose we could say there are products and services the company provides, environmental issues, better write that in green. You understand? Sustainability. And if a public company which shares quoted on the stock exchange, performance of the company in generating profits becomes of paramount interest. So if you turn then to page 7, financial statements, you can see there that we have several challenges in this exam. One obviously is the layout of the statement of financial position, used to be called the balance sheet, and of course the layout of the income statement. Quite apart from that, we have things like the statement of changes in equity, not to mention the cash flow statement. So those are the 4 fundamental skills you must display, as we've explained on page 7. Towards the end of page 7, we introduce the concept of a suspense account. What that means is, once you've done your transactions in something called a ledger, the balances from the ledger are extracted into something called a trial balance. If that trial balance doesn't balance, we introduce something called a suspense account. It's temporarily suspended until such time as you find where these figures should have gone in the first place. So that itself is a skill the examiner will be testing you on. Eliminating the suspense account and pushing those items to their final resting place. As a final part of this session, what I'd like you to do is to turn to page 8 and 9. To show you the formats. The statement of financial position, you must learn that by heart. Even though under this computer-based type of exam for 2 marks and so on, for different questions, just 2 marks, you will not be expected to do a whole financial statement position. On the other hand, if you want to get a good mark, you must show some demonstration of the relationship between figures. So for that reason, I'd like you to memorize the format. Looking at non-current assets, you see we have cost, depreciation, and net book value. Under current assets, we have inventory, another word for stock, trade receivables, sometimes called debtors or customers, of course. These are credit customers who haven't paid us yet, which is why we have an asset. Prepayments, obviously payments made in advance, which gives the company a benefit of a free service in the future, and the value of that benefit is described as a prepayment. In other words, if you pay your rent for 6 months in advance of this year, you've paid for the whole of this year plus another 6 months. For the first 6 months of next year, the company has an asset because that rent has been prepaid. And the value of that asset, that value of the benefit the company will receive without paying any more money for the first half of next year, is put onto the balance sheet or the statement of financial position. Then you have the cash balance. That's your total assets added up. You then have your capital section. The opening capital plus profit minus drawings is obviously your closing capital. The non-current liabilities follow. That is, of course, items that the company must pay outside of 1 year. And then you have the current liabilities, which clearly falls within 1 year. So make sure you memorize the format for the statement of financial position, as indeed you will for on the next page, the statement of comprehensive income, or just income statement is good enough. Revenue means sales or turnover. Less cost of sales gives gross profit. You have a few other sundry income items. Take away your expenses, and you have your net profit. That's just a sample of the kind of items you might encounter in the exam. Beyond that, we have a more formal limited company or public limited company at times format. So that is something well worth studying as well. Do notice that the early part of the equity and liability section is quite different from that of a sole trader, which was in the earlier pages. So do be careful of that. The income statement, nothing to report, and of course the statement of changes in equity. It's very important to realize that this structured format helps comparability between companies, and of course for a single company, comparability between different years. So please be mindful of that. So you notice that we have been looking at what financial accounting is about, and indeed why we do financial accounting. That ends this section. In the next section, I propose to show you how we do double entry bookkeeping.